it's a brand new year and everybody's talking about new year, new you, but you can't just go jumping into the beginning of a new you overnight. You have to be a little bit more strategic than that. And I am all about intentionality and a vision. And the vision is not just a set it and forget it kind of thing that you look at the end of the year just to see if you actually accomplished those things like it's some sort of magic trick. Like, no, we can actually follow a plan. God is a planner. We can be planners too. And the reason it's a problem is because if you're just wandering around aimlessly, you're never going to hit any targets. Lewis Carroll said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And that's the truth. We don't need any more bumpy roads. So how about we pay attention to what we're doing in the first place so we can avoid some of those if we can. And I recently went back and I looked at my vision from last year as I'm going into this one. And so much of what I wrote is absolutely how my year ended because I took that vision and turned it into goals and action steps and things that I actively did to prioritize living in a way that supported my vision. And the part that really got me is the part that I wrote about my relationship with my son, and I am going to share that with you. So here's what I wrote when we were at the end of 23. I wrote this letter to myself as if I were already where we are right now. John and I have continued to have open conversations that help us understand each other better. We enjoy spending time together. I've enjoyed watching him develop as he becomes a young man. And now that he's done with high school, I feel less strain or pressure to push him. I advise and guide him rather than tell him what to do and hound him. Now, that wasn't some big, sweeping vision for my relationship with my son, but it was a place that at one point in time I never thought that we would be at. So it actually made me cry when I read that back. And I absolutely love where we are in our relationship now because he's getting ready to head off into his own journey and start his life having to stand on his own 2 feet without mom being right there all the time. But I know he feels loved and he feels supported and that I've prepared him as best as I can to advocate for himself, to ask for help, to look for solutions instead of just quitting when he can't figure something out. And we're still working on that one. But I know I've done good, and I couldn't have said that before. I would have been worried before if I screwed him up, if I caused him a lot of therapy before. And with the work that we've done, I am looking forward to this time in his life probably as much as he is, and what it means for our continual shift in the parent-son dynamic. And that only happened because I started doing what my pastor says, and being Christian doesn't mean that I just like Jesus. It means that I am trying to live like him. And when I started trying to live like him, it changed the way I interact, not just with my son, but with everybody. And honestly, I don't want to live any other way. So in this episode, we are going to set the stage for who we'll be as mothers based on God's word. We are going to list our strengths based on who God is calling us to be. And we're going to create visions for the year that build on our strengths. We're going to be very strategic as we move into the new year. I'm Tanisha, the VBS Life Coach, and I teach moms simple, God-centered ways to relax, manage their emotions, and reconnect with their kids on a deeper level. My mission in life has always been to help kids. And as I am thinking about my life in the education arena, I see an opportunity to help that's so much bigger than being in the schoolhouse. And I really want to help us raise our kids without that same harsh punishment that we grew up with so that we can break cycles and raise self-esteem and create a better mental health legacy for them. And then in saying that, I want you to understand that you are a crucial part. You are a pivotal part of who they become as adults. And so we can't dismiss that. We can't take that lightly. That self-talk that you have now as an adult was put there when you were a child. Those beliefs that you operate by, a lot of the beliefs that you have as an adult were put there when you were a child. And so you are doing that same installation process with your own kids, whether you want to admit it, whether you even realize it. Hopefully you do now. And so we have to be very intentional. As I think about who I want to be as a mom, there is no better source than God's word, where we see the nature of God and the nature of a woman, because we are created in his image and who he wants us to be. And I was talking to my mom about my mission, and she reminded me about the Proverbs 31 woman, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since then. We're going to get into the Proverbs 31 woman very deeply today. As a side note, there are a couple things I want to share. If you are new to Christianity, if you are just getting back into church and trying to build your relationship with God, the Bible can be intimidating, and there are so many different versions of the Bible. I grew up with the King James Version, and while it sounds pretty, it was very hard to understand. And so if you want a real relationship and you want to really walk with God's word in your heart, you have to make sure you understand what you're reading so that you can apply it. You can't apply what you don't understand. And so with all that said, I have the NLT translation. It is the New Living Translation. It's super easy to understand. This one came from Filament. I love it. It has these little marks at the top that I can scan, and then it takes me to study notes on the passages and gives me context into what's happening historically and all that kind of stuff. Like, I love this. And I also absolutely recommend highly and love the Bible app. I use it every day. There are plans in there that you can follow for different things going on in your life. So I've been doing plans, like devotional plans on business, womanhood, being a mom, parenting in general. Listen to it. Like, you can hit play and listen to it. So when you're driving in the car and you want to hear the word, when you're getting ready for work, when you're just sitting at your desk, you can listen to the word. And it's not like a robot reading to you. It's people who are reading these chapters of the Bible, and you can switch between different versions, because sometimes I want to switch to a different version because my pastor uses a different version, or I remember something from my King James growing up period that I'm like, wait, what does this really mean if I look at it in the NLT Bible? How do they break it down? So yeah, that is just a little side note that I wanted to share with you. If you are looking for an unintimidating translation of the Bible, I highly recommend the New Living Translation, NLT, because it's easy to understand and relatable. That's important because we are supposed to be doers of the word and not just hearers of the word. It's well researched and an accurate translation done by biblical scholars. So highly recommend the NLT Bible and the Bible app, which is free. Don't make excuses. If you say that your goal is to get closer and to get into your word, there are apps for that. So now, Proverbs 31 starts with one of the most important phrases to me. Not in the whole Bible, but pretty up there for me. And it says, "The sayings of King Lemuel contain this message, which his mother taught him." And the thing is, like, when we hear people talk about the Proverbs 31 woman, they always focus on the characteristics of the woman and the things that come after the first, like, 6 verses. But can we just start with the very first one, and the fact that this influential, life-changing, pivotal lesson was delivered by his mother. She was teaching him. She was leading him. It is your job as the mom to lead and teach your children. So people don't talk about that very often. And I love this chapter so much. And that part of it strikes me as so important and so overlooked, because her wisdom has to be appreciated for it to last all these years and for it to be included and attributed to her in the book. She was his teacher. She was a high influence in his life because he felt it necessary to repeat that for scribes. And this has been studied for generations now. So look at God and the wisdom of a mother. That's something that I know I strive for every day, is to be wise and teach my son well. As the chapter continues, we start to see other qualities that the Proverbs 31 woman has. And we're going to start with the fact that she is virtuous. That means she lives by God's principles. And that is truly what I'm trying to do at this stage in my life. It tells us that she's capable. She's trustworthy. She adds value to her husband's life. She's resourceful. She makes good use of her time. And can I get into all of the little nuanced verses and where I'm pulling each of these things from? Yes, but that's for a whole other audience and time that we don't have. But some of them I am going to break down, because in one of the verses, it talks about her bringing her food and being like a merchant ship. And I really need to unpack that idea or symbol of the merchant ship, because in ancient times, they were symbols of trade and resourcefulness and provision, meaning they provided the things that people needed. And they would go these long distances to get the best quality of things, rare quality of things, and bring them back to their home port. And that's what, as women, we are being called to do, to look for the best things to bring into our homes. And it's not just about looking for the best things out there. It's about being the best in here. We should give our best at home, not out when we're elsewhere and then coming home depleted and everybody else gets the frustrated, angry, irritated version of us. We should be bringing our best here. And this merchant ship of a woman, she shows the lengths that she will go to provide for her family and make sure that they have what they need, even if it requires some effort and some time. You know, being on a ship wasn't always easy. And they had to be resourceful and creative. And they had to trust that ultimately their plans were going to get them to the destination and get what they needed accomplished. The other thing that is so important is the fact that she was a planner. She's an early riser and she's a planner. And we are at the beginning of a year and it's time to start planning. And so we're already leaning into that identity of the Proverbs 31 woman. And in verse 16, go inspect a field herself. She doesn't send somebody else. She goes and inspects this field to buy it. And then she plants a vineyard with what she earns. And so what that tells me is that she is a businesswoman. She is making informed decisions, and she's making investments in things that are going to continue to bring in dividends and revenue. What it doesn't talk about is her being a frivolous spender, right? She's creating generational wealth and ongoing wealth for her family. And they say, you know, oh, women can't have it all, but that's not true, because I'm seeing right here, right? She's got a husband who she loves. She's got children who she loves. She has a business that she loves, and she's running her household. She's doing all the things. We can absolutely have it all. It's about how we're using our time and how we're being strategic in what we do. The woman is described as energetic, strong, hardworking. She gives back to her community. She lives unafraid of the hard times because she's been making preparations for all of the things that she could possibly prepare for. She's well dressed. She has multiple streams of income. She is clothed with strength and dignity. And dignity is another one that I really want to talk about, because we hear people say it, but do we really understand what it means? So I did some digging. Dignity means knowing that every person is special and that they deserve to be treated with our respect and kindness, including ourselves. She carries herself treating herself with dignity, not just others. And a lot of times we are super hard on ourselves and we have the worst self-talk. Moms have the worst self-talk. And it's time for us to stop that and treat ourselves with the same love and care and respect that we think other people should have. And it's like having a little crown, right? Have a little crown on your head. I don't know why my crown likes to sit to the side, but have a little crown on your head that shows that you are important, but then you treat the people around you like they have crowns on too. And you don't go trying to knock somebody's crown off. When you see it slip, you help them put it back up there. That's dignity. And when you have dignity, you stand tall, you make good choices, and you don't let people, you don't even accept the idea that people can make you feel small or bad about yourself, because you know who you are and you know who you are in God. And when you respect somebody else's dignity, you show them kindness and care. And even if you don't agree with them or they're different from you, you still know how to treat them with respect. It's about remembering that everybody matters, not just you. That includes choosing the words that you say carefully before you let things leave your lips. Is this something that is going to uplift and honor the dignity in the person that I'm talking to? Especially when we're angry, because that's the hardest. It's the hardest to do when we're pissed. So that's that's a growth area, I believe, for us all. She uses her words to teach others, but she does it in a way that is kind when she gives instructions, and not just instructions, but corrections, right? There's no way that she doesn't have to correct her children or correct her staff. She absolutely does it, but the Bible tells us she does it with kindness. She watches over every aspect of her household. So yeah, she's gonna have to tell people what to do. But there's a way to do things. But then we get to see the result of being this way. The Bible continues to talk about how her children and her husband see her. And we talk about how much we feel unappreciated, right? But these children and her husband, they appreciate and they absolutely adore her. They encourage her, and anybody who comes into contact with her sees the God in her and sees the good in her and actions that she has taken, because she lets her fruit, her works, her walk be the thing that speaks for her. She's not boasting and telling people, oh, I've done all these amazing things. No, she's just living for God and her family and under his wisdom, and the appreciation just comes as a side effect. But at the end of the day, she's not looking for it. She doesn't need it. It's just something that she gets as a result. One thing that I used to complain about was not feeling appreciated, until I learned that my appreciation comes from within me. How much am I appreciating the fact that I've been given certain skills and opportunities to talk to people in different spaces, to move my body, to open my eyes, to think clearly. And so it's more than just being grateful for those things. It's also acknowledging that I'm pretty dope. And I don't need somebody else to tell me that in order for me to be able to see it. And I know that from this very long list of things about who God is calling us to be, you can see yourself in that. And so we are going to use that to build our year. So now that we're clear on the women that we're being called to be, we need to think about where we are already strong. I work really hard to not focus on the language of lack, because that's just an easy road to negative self-talk and discouragement and talking yourself out of you getting where you want to go. And you'll tell yourself all the ways that you're not enough. But where we are going to continue developing is where we are already solid, because we're confident there. And with that confidence, we can lead. And we know that just because we're confident, it doesn't mean that we've reached the pinnacle. There's always room to level up. So where are those things from the list where you see yourself being strong? And then you can look at what are some things that you see yourself wanting to become stronger. I'm going to give you my own, like one of my things. And it's the fact that I am capable and I am very resourceful. So much so that one of my nicknames from my family is MacGyver. And I decided that this year I am going to lean into just how resourceful I can be as I continue building my coaching practice and this business and taking care of things around my house because there's a lot of stuff that I have been blessed to be able to do. In my day job, I am a technology coach. So there's a lot that I know how to do. So instead of me looking all over the place and spinning my wheels, how can I be resourceful and use these skill sets that I already have to make my business run more efficiently, make my life easier? I'm leaning into that with the transition in my son and I, and him leaving, everything now is back to just being me. And so I'm thinking about how I can be resourceful in terms of using my time wisely, using my resources wisely to make sure that my house stays in order, which is usually not out of order, but I want to make sure that everything is handled and it doesn't feel like somehow I'm overwhelmed by things because I'm here without him. I also looked at the areas where I want to grow stronger. And so for me, I want to be more intentional about treating other people with dignity and reminding them of the beauty that I see in them because I know a lot of us don't see it or we don't hear about it or we get a lot more messages about who we're not and what we're not going to be. So one thing that I want to do is be intentional about building other people up and treating them with the dignity that they deserve and uplifting them. And especially my son as he has to step out into the world. And I know he's going to feel like he's on shaky ground and not sure if he is capable. The areas that I want to grow in are ones that align with my secular ideas about how I want my life to be, but more than anything is very much so right in line with who God is calling me to be. And I don't want to do anything that's at odds with that. I know that I am on the right path with building multiple streams of income and making wise investments. And I definitely want to grow and giving back to my community more, especially my church community. So that's something that I'll be focused on for this year. But all of these things give me an amazing start to plan a year that I know I can sustain instead of coming up with these arbitrary goals that really don't align with the word or who I want to be when my days have come to an end. Now, when it comes to writing a vision, I like to write it like it already happened and I'm reflecting back, but you don't have to do it that way. You can just write it however you want to, and you don't have to physically write it. You can put a note in your phone. You can do a vision board with little captions. However you do it. What are those strengths that you want to build on? What does that life look like for you as you do that? The vision, however, is not where the work stops. We don't just create the vision and leave it there. So in the follow-up for this, we're going to talk about now that we have these visions, how do we turn these into actionable steps and real plans to follow? For now, I want you to just describe in detail, as much detail as you can, by the end of the year, what you want your life to look like if you are living as the Proverbs 31 woman and you are leaning into your strengths and when you have grown in the areas where you said you want to grow. Over the last several years, I've been doing this strategy and it has helped me to do stuff that I never thought I was going to be able to do or thought about, but was like, that's people like me don't do that. But I wrote a book and I have all these different certifications for both my careers, finding my ideal partner. Time ultimately tells people split many, many years after being together, but so far so good. And leading as a mom and growing in my faith and my life is absolutely becoming closer to the one of my dreams without me having to wait to hit the Powerball. So it's time to get intentional. And if you are trying to live a God-centered life, then we need to look to God's word first before we start trying to plan anything, he should be at the center of that. And if you're ready to start looking at yourself and the blind spots that might be getting in the way of you having a family who loves and adores you in the same way, created this free training called The 7 Worst Mistakes That Moms Make That Create Resentful Kids Who Don't Respect Them. And you just enter your name and email, and I'll send that to you. And you'll see on the next screen, actually, after you enter that, there's a link where you can just start watching the video right away. So remember that you cannot fix what you can't see. And so it's time for us to start intentionally looking at the things that we're doing so that we can be intentional about living the way God is calling us to be. Thank you so much for being here and digging into the Proverbs 31 woman with me. I want you to come back for the next episode where we turn those visions into clear goals with action steps so that we have a focused set of priorities and we don't end up giving up before we even get started.